Dr. Mindy Pelz. Thank you so much for making time to do this.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Dr. Mindy, from your perception, what would you say is the single greatest misconception or confusion men have about women that creates the most friction between the sexes?
Oh, this is so good. Thank you for starting with that. The greatest misconception is thinking that we have the same brain. We have vastly different brains, and the ways our brain work are very different. For example, a male brain works from back to front, and it's called a lateralized brain, where it can work one side in the creative, the right hemisphere, the emotional side. It can go over there and operate from that side, and then it can operate from the logical, the practical side on the left hemisphere. And your brains have a tendency to switch from one side to the other. As women, that's not how our brains work. We have a thicker highway between the right and the left hemispheres that starts to come into play when we go through puberty. That part of the brain is called the corpus callosum, and it communicates between the right and the left hemispheres. And when a woman starts to go into a cycle or her menstrual cycle in puberty, she actually will start to have what we call a cross-referenced brain. A brain that always is using the right and the left hemisphere at the same time, which means she is always thinking in a relational, it's called a relational brain. She's always thinking in terms of people's emotions and mixing that with practicality, which is why we become very good at people pleasing. It's why we are prone to codependency, because we always are thinking about the other person, always putting ourselves in positions where we are using both sides of the brain at the same time, working towards an emotional connection. It is very difficult for us to take emotion out of it until we go to menopause. When we go to menopause, this cross-referenced relational brain changes, and we actually have more of a lateralized brain like yours. And so if we're always thinking through the lens of emotions and relations, and you're in practicality and facts, you have lost us. We don't know how to communicate because we want to know what you feel about the facts. We don't want the facts. We want to know how you feel about the facts. Once we get over into postmenopausal, then we could probably sit with you and talk facts. But pretty much everything we're going to do with you before that period is going to have an emotional piece to it. And your brain is not going to understand that because you're oftentimes more slanted towards the left hemisphere, which is logical and practical, and ours doesn't work that way.
How does a woman want to be approached by a man when there is, say, some type of disagreement or some reactivity or some situation where I'm like, this is logical, these are the facts, and perhaps there feels like there's incongruence?
Thank you for asking us. The first thing is we need to be seen and heard. We need our emotions to be honored. So if you're telling us the things we did wrong or the grievance you had, and we're using words like, I feel this, I'm worried about this, like there's a set of feeling words that we use that are expressing our emotional state. The very first thing you can do that would be so helpful is to mirror back to us what we're feeling. Something as simple as, I hear you're feeling very upset about that, and I'm here with you. And what I would like to do is go back over here to facts and tell you what I'm seeing. And I want you to know that I'm not discrediting what you feel. I want you to know I'm over here showing you what I see. And I would love for you to come with me and see what I see. And I also am recognizing your feelings.
That's beautiful. Where does the menstrual cycle come into this conversation to inform a man?
So good. Thank you. Thank you. I just really appreciate you having this conversation with me, because I have been talking about the menstrual cycle and how we change for ever since Fast Like a Girl came out. And I wish that men, if they understood our menstrual cycle, they would know how to communicate with us, because men have a hormonal cycle that's 24 hours. So you have one primary hormone, it's testosterone. It goes up into the brain and converts into estrogen. And you get about every 15 minutes, it's like you get a pulse of testosterone. So you work off a 24-hour cycle. We work off a 30-day cycle. And so the first 10 days, we have estrogen coming in. We don't have a lot of testosterone the first 10 days. Estrogen makes us highly relational. It helps us use both hemispheres of the brain. It gives us a really good ability to multitask. And we want to sit and talk about our feelings then. When you move into ovulation, which is day 10 through day 15, this is the magic spot. This is where anything you want to say to us, any conflict you want to resolve with us, do it between day 10 and day 15. Because we have the most amount of estrogen, so we're very verbal. We can access both parts of our brains. We have the most amount of testosterone. Women only get they get a main burst of testosterone from day 10 to 15. We don't have a lot of testosterone the rest of the cycle. So, and we'll come back to all the implications of that for you all. But testosterone is more than libido, it's motivation and drive. So if you want to resolve a conflict with us, do it between day 10 and day 15, because we're motivated to resolve a conflict with you. And then we also have a little bit of progesterone during this time. Progesterone is what calms us. So the best time to connect with a woman in your life, the best time to help your teenager. I've talked to so many dads about this. If you have a teenage girl that you don't understand, don't talk to her about her grades on day 29 of her cycle. Go to day 12 and talk to her there, because she's more neurochemically capable to connect to you. And then when we come out of ovulation around days 15, 16, we start to go inner, and we go into what I called the nurture phase in Fast Like a Girl. And this is when progesterone comes in. And progesterone wants us to sit on the couch and do very little. Progesterone needs you as a man, if you're in a heterosexual relationship with a woman, to nurture us, take care of us. That's the time we want to slow down. And if you are finding that the woman in your life is very irritable, it's probably because she's trying to speed up. She's trying to do too much. She's too stressed out during this period. And you calming us and bringing that protector energy that the masculine can bring in so well, and giving us a little extra foot rub, make us dinner during that time, is so powerful, because we just need to go into a calmer mode, and we don't have a world where women are slowing down the week before their period. So it's like outgoing. We're going to be very gregarious day 1 through day 10. If you want to resolve conflict, or if you are having trouble with, sexual mismatch, our libido's the highest during that time, from day 10 to day 15, and then nurture us day 20 until we bleed. And what I hear from most men is they don't know when a woman cycles. If you want a deeper connection with your woman, you should know when she's cycling.
Do you feel like we are presently living a little bit? I think we're living in a mismatch in a lot of ways. But we talked before this a little bit about, fancy smart stuff like Cartesian duality, scientism, rationality, materialism, reductionism, things like that. All of those are inherently not very feminine. And I think that the world that we reside within is largely in that space of kind of like reductionist, materialist scientism. I'm kind of just throwing a bunch of word salad in there, but I think you get the point. it feels inherently frictive to femininity.
Yeah, thank you. It is. Yeah, I mean, the modern world is not working well for the feminine body, for the female body. It's not working well at all. Because if we just go back to the menstrual cycle, the week before our period, we're meant to rest and to slow down. But if I'm a woman in the corporate world, what am I supposed to say? Like, I'm sorry, it's day 23 of my cycle. I can't do the extra workload that you just gave me. There's no ability for us to rest. You mix that with the demands to be worthy of love, to be applauded for success. We're a very success driven culture. And you've got a woman that is constantly performing, whether it's for you, for, for the world. She needs to look a certain way in order to be accepted. She needs to be a certain size. She needs to behave a certain way. There is so much messaging to women that you are worthy when you act a certain way. You are worthy when you are selfless and you give to others. And so women are suffering at the hands of this, and I say patriarchal system, and by patriarch I do not mean men. I have a son. I'm married to a beautiful man. I love men. The patriarchal system is what I consider power over. And this power over this need to produce in order to be worthy, this need to look a certain way in order to be loved, this is destroying the female body.
Hmm. Well, what do you think culture could use to be more supportive to femininity in general? And femininity is a quality that's incredibly supportive for a person with a penis as well. It's a
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You exist because of a female body.
Mm-hmm. And you carry feminine qualities within yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
How
That's
would you
right.
define femininity and masculinity?
Oh, it's such a good question in this day and age, right? Because we have, I have a son and a daughter, and I had my daughter play with trucks, and she didn't really like that. And I tried to have my son play with dolls, and he didn't gravitate to that. He wanted the truck, and the daughter wanted the dolls. And I was like, wow, like I tried to give you the option. And I think we got to come back to estrogen. Estrogen is that outlying hormone that makes us feel feminine, and it makes us feel relational. So when I look at what femininity is, to me, it's not pink, it's not dolls, it's not dresses. It's care of another human's heart. It's care of the human spirit. It's care of the culture. Because of estrogen, we are meant to nurture. Just like because of testosterone, you are meant to protect. And it sounds so sexist, but the feminine energy wants to be nurturing, not just to you, but to the planet, to the community. And now we need to train women to be nurturing to themselves, which is what we haven't allowed us, this culture hasn't allowed us to do. Just like the male protector energy would really benefit from protecting in really positive ways. My husband and I just had this conversation the other day. And I've really been trying to express to him, sometimes he shows up and goes to bat for me because, things like I've been bullied I actually get bullied on social media. I'm 55 years old and I have playground bullies on social media. And we were talking, oh, yeah, they're like, I'll be really transparent. The biggest interview I've done to date was on the Diary of the CEO, and it was the first interview I did with him. I've done two, and it was a 2.5 hour interview in person, which is, if you've ever done one of those, is mind draining. And I made a misquote about fasting and testosterone. And it wasn't really that egregious. I will tell you what the quote was. I said that men's testosterone goes up by 1,300% when they fast 24 hours. It was it was an old study before we had new studies on testosterone. And what I should have said is growth hormone. Growth hormone goes up by 1,300% when a man fasts for 24 hours. And growth hormone is the precursor to all hormones. The bro culture did not like that I misquoted that. And I was bullied for weeks. I actually have a name of my bully. And he came after me and said the rudest things. And I don't know if he had bots or whatever of, you're a fraud, you're a liar. I had TikTok videos of me like making fun of me that my kids actually saw. And they're like, hey, mom, there's some shit going down on TikTok about you. And I needed masculine protector energy, not masculine bully energy. And so, that was a beautiful moment that my husband brought the more nurturing side of him to me as I navigated being publicly ridiculed by these men for this misquote.
Yeah, people are mean.
They're really mean. Yeah. Yeah.
I interrupted you. Do you remember where you were at?
Yeah, no, and so I think what I'd love to bring forward, and this is such a beautiful conversation, is the masculine protector energy is attractive to females. Like, and but it can be done in such a beautiful, nurturing way of care. And what it means to be a female in this world right now, if I go back to that, what is femininity? We want to bring emotions into every single situation. We want to bring feelings into relationships, into work, into interviews like this, into messages we bring forward. We are very heart-centered like that because of estrogen. And so when you know how to connect with us and bring that forward, that is femininity. Think of your mother, like, that mother sort of authority, nurturing energy. And I know not everybody got a nurturing mother, but we're really good at that if we are given the right container and environment to do it. And if we feel supported. If we don't feel supported or heard or seen, then we go to default of what the patriarch said. And the patriarch said, if you're a size 4 and you weigh a certain way and you don't have wrinkles and you have a certain hair color and eye color and you look a certain way like the models in the magazines, you will be loved. And now we have, if you are successful and you produce, you will be worthy. And so what would be really beautiful is to let the feminine rest, let the feminine nurture, and tell us that's okay, and support us through that.
That's beautiful. What has feminism is how you say that word, done from your perception to the quality of life to the feminine?
Oh, so good. That was so good. You're like, I feel like you've been listening to the conversations in my house. I said this on Stephen Bartlett too. Feminism helped women see how powerful they were. Like if we go back in time, it wasn't very long ago that women couldn't have a checking account. It wasn't very long ago that women couldn't vote. And so we've got to start to, what the feminist movement was, help women see that you're equal. That's beautiful. We're equal. We all should be equal. And where it got destroyed us is that we should have a different pace that we go by in life because we do require more rest than the male body. And that is a hard one. That is a hard one for feminist women because, I'm a type A overachiever, and I have to constantly remind myself that my feminine body needs more rest, that I have to take time off. And it might be that rest looks like just sitting on the couch on a Sunday and not feeling like we have to constantly perform. So where feminist went, the feminist movement started to show us that Rosie the Riveter figure of you can do everything. You can be you can be a working mom. You can come home and take care of your children. You can kill it at your career. You can be super mom. You can be all these things. And so now what's happening is women are destroying themselves trying to be all these things. The most common thing, the story I tell often is I literally have a picture of Rosie the Riveter in my kitchen. And I was a working mom. And I was drowning because if anybody who's been a working mom will tell you, if you're building a career and a family, it's insanity. And there's no room for self-care. And I remember looking at Rosie the Riveter, and I was so proud of that symbol of like, we can do it. We can do anything we want. And I literally sat in front of this picture one day and I was like, Rosie, I actually think you got it wrong. And I'm not saying that means women need to stay at home. In my family, I worked and my husband stayed at home. It was what we chose to do. But we have to understand that the pressures for women in this modern world are greater. And a lot of that came from the feminist movement because we're out there saying we can do everything. So we put on a happy face, we're doing everything, but we are dying inside. There's an absolute reason that women get 80% of autoimmune conditions happen to women. It's like if we don't slow down and honor a different pace for ourselves, all of a sudden our bodies start attacking itself. And there's a whole emotional piece to autoimmune conditions that backs this up. So the feminist movement was great in the sense that it taught us our worth. But now we need to be so in love with our worth that we're willing to rest and not be perfect, not have the world tell us that we're worthy just because we look a certain way or we act a certain way. We need to go into teach women how to self-love so that we can learn how to rest again. And then we're going to get the best out of the female spirit and the female body.
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this conversation. I want to invite you to try a breathing technique that I find to be the fastest, most effective way to regulate your nervous system using your breath. If that is of interest for you to try, the link is in the description and it is absolutely free. Hope you enjoy the rest of the conversation. How would you, if you're creating a guide to rehabilitate femininity in modern culture, what would you prescribe people, men and women, to be able to elicit the most expressed, sexy, magical version of the feminine?
Well, the first thing is I think the standard work week works really well for the male body. 5 days on, 2 days off, great. I think women should have when they're menstruating, should have a 30-day work week. I think we should have where we're working more from day 1 of our menstrual cycle towards day 20. And then about day 20, we actually start to do like half a load for a week. I don't know how we could ever make that happen. Stephen and I talked about it. We actually have tried it in our company and struggled with it. I know Spain, the federal government at Spain tried to implement, I don't know if it succeeded, but tried to implement a 3-day menstrual leave for women where 3 days a month, they could just take a random day off, 3 days off, and it could be around their menstrual cycle. And that was really quite spectacular to watch a country try to implement that. So our work pace needs to be different. The way we approach nutrition, the way we approach fasting, the way we approach supplementation, the way we approach biohacking, cold plunges, saunas, red light, we can't do it like a man. We need to look at where our hormones are and if it's a time period when we should be resting, when progesterone is coming in. We need to not be cold plunging. We need to not be Spartan racing. We need to learn how to slow down so that once our period starts, then we can do all those things. So
can I stop you there with the cold
course.
plunge, and then we'll bookmark the rest, because I think that is a pretty interesting thing that's coming into more common conversation. When should a woman be cold plunging, if at all?
The best time would be between day 1 and day 10 of her menstrual cycle. So, and she could probably even go to day 15. But after day 15, you shouldn't be cold plunging because it spikes cortisol. It follow the fasting. It's very much like the fasting cycle that I put in Fast Like a Girl. The beginning part of the cycle, we can take stress. The back part of the cycle, especially the week before our period, we don't want cortisol around because when cortisol goes high, progesterone is shy. She's out. She's gone. And this is why you're seeing infertility. This is why you're seeing so many women who have lost their menstrual cycles because they're doing cortisol rich activities the week before their period. And we have to stop that. So that's what the problem. And you know, the cold plunge is a hormetic stress. So it is a stressor. It's a small stressor, but that's why fasting doesn't even work well for us the week before our periods. Because anytime cortisol goes up, progesterone's gone. You cannot think of your body like a chemistry experiment. You cannot make progesterone in the presence of cortisol. So you want to bring cortisol down, which is why that rest is so important. And if you look at the evolutionary design of us, progesterone stimulates GABA. It's the primary neurotransmitter it stimulates because, and what does GABA do? It calms us. So if we just go off of why would we have the most amount of progesterone the week before our period? Because we are meant to rest. And so now we've got women biohacking to extreme levels that week, and they're losing their cycle. Their infertility rates are so high because of women being saturated with cortisol during that week.
That's awesome. Is it the same with training? Could she be doing CrossFit and things of the sort? I mean, I don't know if anybody needs to be doing CrossFit depending upon, how you do it, but I think CrossFit's fine. But I think that there can also adding like weight and speed and competition to complex lifts, I think is very risky. That's a totally separate conversation. But could a woman be doing high intensity training during that, say the first 10 days? And that's, that's the follicular phase, right?
Yeah.
Follicular. Yeah. And then after that, would it be wise for a gal to be doing what should she do after that?
Yeah. So let's go through the menstrual cycle and talk about training because it's really interesting. So day 1 through day 10, day 1, by the way, a lot of women don't even know this, is the first day your period starts. So the first day you need feminine care products. That's day 1. Those first 10 days, estrogen's building. Estrogen's pretty cortisol tolerant. The thing that estrogen wants is glucose to be low. So this is why keto fasting is so intense HIIT training, in any kind of intense exercise is going to be fine on that day 1 through day 10. Totally great because estrogen just wants you to keep glucose low and doesn't care so much about cortisol. Once you go into ovulation, every month a woman ovulates at a different moment. And so it's not predictable each month, which is why people are struggling with infertility because you map it and then the next month it's different. So day 10 to day 15, we've got estrogen at her highest. Estrogen makes ligaments very flexible. So if I'm doing a lot of box jumps, a lot of sprint work, because of that flexibility, we are actually more prone to those real abrupt movements. We're more prone to injury during that time. But we have the most amount of testosterone. This was the thing when I really dove into the menstrual cycle. I'm like, why aren't we lifting really heavy weights when we have the most amount of testosterone? So day 10 to day 15, our testosterone is surging. Go and do your, your background as a trainer. Like, why wouldn't one day we do legs and glutes, and then the next day we do bis and tris, and then the next day we do pecs? Like, take that 5-day window and really try to maximize this testosterone burst that we have to be able to build muscle. Then when we come out of ovulation, there's like a small little 5-day window, day 16 to day 20. It's like 4 or 5 days. You can push us again. Hormones are low. We can do a lot of aerobic activity. We can go back to the HIIT style where we're out of breath and we're trying to build growth hormone. Amazing. But then once day 20 happens, we need to go into yoga. We need to go into restorative type movement so that we can get rest and recovery so that once day one hits again, we're ready to go. And the most common thing I hear from women is, well, once my period starts, I'm actually not feeling great. If a woman's not feeling great on day one or day two of her period, it's because she didn't rest and recover enough the week before her period. And so once her period starts, if she's got cramps and she's irritable, she didn't mind what progesterone needed her to do the week before her period.
That's so good. And so is it about a 10-day period that we can get into reactive material in a relationship if there's like some stuff, some disagreements or some baggage?
Yes. You are best off talking to us somewhere between day one. It's actually 15 days. Somewhere if you have some issues with us, day one of our cycle, if she rests the week before, if not, maybe wait a couple of days, but all the way through day 15. But your prime window is day 10 through day 15 of her cycle, which is 5 days.
And when you are ovulating, when gals are ovulating, is it true that there are subconscious visual cues that you are exhibiting, such as like facial structure changing and lips changing and pheromones and things? Like you're kind of like a fruit. And it's kind of like, oh, like this is ripe. And
Yeah.
I'm showing you all the signals that it's ripe right now. It's almost like
Yeah.
you're a tree going through a cycle 12 times a year or so.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's well said. I'm not a facial expert. I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah, it would be like this, like, like there's
No,
a
I
lot of
think there's
there's a
like
lot
some
of
like
clues we give you.
I think like bones change from my, I don't know. I need to look it up. I don't know. Don't quote me on this. I don't want to.
Yeah. Well,
Whatever.
here's how you know. This is probably the best way to tell. Estrogen brings about 12 other neurochemicals with her. So when we're building estrogen, which is day 1 through day 15, that's like, let's just keep it simple. We are also getting more dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, oxytocin. We'll talk about that in a moment. BDNF, glutamate. These are serotonin. These are neurotransmitters that make us very happy and very relational. So if you start to actually watch our behaviors, you'll see that the front half of our cycle, we're happier. Your chewing isn't irritating us as much. Your loud breathing in bed not doesn't bother us so much because we're locked and loaded with all these neurochemicals. But as we go into the back part of our cycle, again, especially the week before our period, your chewing is incredibly loud and irritating. And the fact that you breathe incredibly loud when we sleep next to you, all of a sudden we are edgy and irritable. And that's because that's part of our design that week before. So the more you can nurture us, give us space, encourage us to rest, now your chewing and your snoring doesn't bother us as much.
And the folks that a gal is attracted to can shift during ovulation from my limited understanding as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So let's talk about the neuroscience of ovulation because it's really spectacular. So we already mentioned estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are all there. Testosterone's the highest. So, and with that comes dopamine, serotonin. Now, there's something magical 2 days before we ovulate, we get a huge burst of oxytocin. And that is by design so that we feel like connecting. So what that might look like is just a lot more touch. We might want to sit on the couch and talk about our feelings. We probably would want to do that at this particular, but we want to be in relationship with you there. We also know that a couple of days before ovulation, melatonin hits its peak. So you might see that we're going to bed a little bit earlier. We might sleep a little bit longer. And that's all by design too, because believe it or not, we have the most amount of mitochondria in the female body is in an egg. So the amount of energy it takes to release an egg requires that the female body sleeps a little more, which is why melatonin naturally comes in. So we might be going to bed a little bit earlier. We might be more in relational with you. There's so much neurochemically going on during that period. So if you use your right brain, if you get out of your left brain and you get into your right brain and you ask us about ourselves at different points, ask us how we're feeling. We want to tell you how we're feeling. I know that's not intuitive for all men, but if you ask us how we're feeling, what can end up happening is you'll start to see where we want to be in connection with you and where we don't want to be in connection with you. And if we go back to this very first question that you asked me, I think that is the challenge that men have in understanding us. And there's a part of me that feels a little sorry for you all, because we're going through a lot of emotional ups and downs in 30 days. And I can imagine you're sitting in a body that is on a 24-hour cycle that's like very steady Eddie, and you're most of the time working from that left brain, and you're watching us go up and down and all around. And I think one of the challenges we have with men and women is that women don't feel seen and heard by men many times. And men are like, you were just great a week ago, and now all of a sudden you're just all over me because I didn't do something right. And if we could understand these hormonal patterns and the way these neurochemicals come in, you would know how to line up with us to get the best out of us, and you would know when you need to back away.
Does birth control confuse mate selection?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The research on that is pretty profound. And this one also is so fascinating, because what the female body is designed to do is to pick a mate that will optimize reproduction of the species. So I know we're in a trend right now where women aren't having, or, there's a lot of single women that are like, I'm never having a child. And I think that's because of such a cortisol saturated environment that so many women are living in. And when we look at what happens to us when we are attracted to another human, the attraction is a lot of that is neurochemical. And so we will identify, our bodies are so wise that we will pick a mate. And a lot of this is based off of smell. That gets really crazy. That we can tell if you will be the proper person for us to mate with, so that we can actually have a egg and a sperm come together to create a baby, and that our immune system matches your sperm so that we don't attack the fertilized egg. Does that make sense? When we go on birth control, we have now lost the instinct to pick a mate that is going to be best for the survival of this next generation. And so a lot of the research that came out that was so fascinating is we're watching women go into heterosexual relationships where they pick a mate for other reasons. They might be great reasons, but then once they get into the marriage and they get off the birth control, all of a sudden there's a mismatch of chemistry because we didn't vet you properly, because we were out of sync with that intuitive nature to find the right mate in order for the species to continue forward.
Damn.
Right. That is crazy. I mean, this is what I mean. Like, I feel like sorry. And we're in a really cool time in history where we're having conversations like this, where men and women are trying to understand each other differently. And this is why I'm not a fan. Like, I have a 26-year-old daughter. And when it came time for her for us to have a birth control conversation, the one birth control I told her you cannot go on is birth control pill. There are too many long-term consequences. Pick a different birth control. And so from a male perspective, you could be supportive if if you're a younger man listening to this. I'll be really transparent. What my kids told me was that it wasn't in vogue for men to wear condoms. Well, if you want the best out of your woman and you don't want her to be neurochemically manipulated by the birth control pill, then either encourage her to get an IUD, which would probably be the next best option, or you use a condom. And because you're asking her to get out of natural rhythm with her instinct, which ultimately down the road could end up biting you.
I feel like we are undergoing like a cultural, biochemical, commercial gaslighting. And to be able to identify, like, who am I? Whose thoughts am I thinking? What are my genuine desires? And what is authenticity? Seems like a real freaking shitstorm. Like, how do you get to the bottom of who the heck you are with all this plastics and birth controls and, you know, commercials and ads, and like, who are you?
I think it's you bring up a really good point. Like, the manipulation of the human body through synthetic chemicals is one issue that we both are experiencing. There's been some really interesting research. There was a woman, Shauna, oh, I can't remember her last name, but she wrote a book called Countdown. And she is a PhD, and she studied testosterone levels and sperm counts in men. And she's saying because of phthalates, which is in a lot of fragrances, and it's also in our meats and not in conventional meat, that when a fetus is swimming in phthalates inside the mother's womb, it actually changes the area between the penis and the anus as a boy is developing, and it's called the hypospadias, and that the penis actually the tagline that got everybody's attention was penises are smaller because of these phthalates. But what's happening is these babies are growing in this chemical soup, and the phthalates are not only changing the structure of this hypospadias, causing the penis to tuck in more, but it's also changing the sperm count. So these babies are coming out already with lower testosterone, lower sperm counts, that it ultimately, then you add more exposure to these chemicals, and down the road, you've got a whole culture of infertility. You have a whole culture who is expressing asexuality right now. You have a whole culture of people that don't want to have kids. And again, I don't think the goal is for us all to be married, for us all to be in heterosexual relationships. But what we are witnessing with this hormonal imbalances from all angles is because the modern world has dramatically changed our physiological makeup of both men and women. And then on the flip side of that, the female is struggling with everything we talked about, and performance. And if I'm not performing for my husband or my boss or the culture, then I'm not worthy. And you have men that have been taught that vulnerability is weakness and don't show that. And so we're living the patriarch is damaging both men and women. And so we're moving further and further away from our true essence. And what I hope is conversations like this can actually bring heterosexual couples back into sync with understanding each other. But to your point, it's really sad, and we need human connection. And there's incredible research showing that being in long-term relationships can be quite rewarding, and we learn a lot. Both men and women learn a lot about ourselves in these long-term relationships. But the modern world is changing all of that, to your point. And how do we get back to this original makeup that we were designed? And I think that a lot of it is conversations like this, and understanding that we're in a very abnormal environment right now. And we need to learn more about our evolutionary design, our original design of how we were built.
Yeah, the woman's name is Shayna Swan. Is
Yes,
the
thank you.
that book.
Shayna Swan. There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the solution is literally and figuratively fasting. I feel like it's just like do less. And I don't mean to plug your previous book, but I don't mean not to either. But I think it really is just like I was in a men's locker room the other day and this fella, he was spraying all of this spray, whatever aerosol stuff, on all over his feet, like all over his legs. I don't know, athlete's foot, I don't know, whatever it is. But it was like the most noxious thing. I absolutely could not breathe. And for him and his experience, no judgment, but for him, it was like perfectly fine. For me and I don't think my experience is subjectively better, worse, or whatever. Just like, but for me, it just felt like poison, and I was like, oh, like had to stop, had to leave the room. And for him, this is the medicine that he's choosing, and it feels like I don't know what the effects that could be happening upstream or downstream from that. I imagine they exist, but it seems like all of the creams and all of the perfumes and all of the potions and all of the supplements and all of the like polysyllabic chemical language stuff that we're like putting in to like fix us and heal us, but the belief that we're inherently broken and we need to be fixed, and we'll reach out and we'll buy something and then we'll finally be good enough and worthy of love and healthy. And it's like it seems like if we just remove and like fast and just
Yes.
get away from it, the body's like,
Yes.
boop, 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 boop. Like we're
Yes.
back.
Right. No, but you bring up a really good point. And what I used to say to people forever was I had in my office, I had a supplement for everything. And then I discovered fasting. And when I discovered fasting, I was like, wait a second. All I have to do is take food out of the equation and the body will heal itself. It will turn on growth hormone. It will repair the gut. It will reset the dopamine system. It will find the stubborn weight. It will reset the immune system. When I started looking deeper and deeper into this, I was like, this is brilliant. To your point, all we need to do is remove the interference so the body can do what it was designed to do. And then if you extrapolate that into the synthetic sprays and the lotions and the potions and all the things we're doing, even the biohacks. I mean, no offense to the biohacking community, but I'm super down on the biohacking community because you are forcing something, you're hacking into an intelligent environment that wants to be harmonized, that wants balance. It doesn't want to be manipulated or forced. It wants to come back into balance. And we're living in this world that is so cortisol rich and so endocrine disruptor rich. And so many people have insulin challenges. And we keep trying to do more when maybe what we need to do is less. And what I loved about fasting with my patients is, I could give them a supplement and say, hey, this is going to fix your gut. And then they come back and they would say to me, oh my God, that supplement was amazing. It totally fixed my gut. But never in that conversation or that transaction did that patient understand they healed themselves. If I go and I say to that patient, hey, if you do a 24-hour fast once a week, the research shows that you're going to have intestinal stem cells. They're going to reboot themselves. And we're going to see microbial diversity in the microbes in your gut, and leaky gut syndrome can be reversed. And if we break that fast with bone broth, then all of a sudden your body will heal itself. That same patient would come back in with just pride on their face of like, look at what I did, because they tapped into the body's own ability to heal itself. And we have gotten so far off. We're so far off for both men and women, that idea. So this is why fasting became a beautiful tool for me to teach women primarily, but so many men have even read Fast Like a Girl, to be able to understand, how do I heal myself by removing what is blocking the healing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like for most things, it's like usually do less. Like even if you are in said disagreement with a gal and a fella, Usually it's like for the fella, it's like just do less, just
Right.
listen.
Well, but see,
You don't need to fix anything.
so this ties into everything else we've been saying. You are spot on. And what you could say is, are you wanting advice? Because my instinct right now is to fix that. And um, I'm thinking maybe you just want to be heard. Like, can I just sit here and hear you and support you? My husband and I go through this all the time. I actually will say to him, I'm going to share with you something I'm going through, and I don't want you to fix it. I actually just want you to hear it because I need to feel heard right now.
What stage of life in a woman's life is the most challenging?
For sure, perimenopause. Without a doubt, perimenopause. Because estrogen has 12 neurochemicals that she stimulates. In my new book, Age Like a Girl, I call it the estrogen's girl gang. She has this gang of neurochemicals that she brings every time estrogen peaks. And when estrogen goes away, then these neurochemicals can go away. So our motivation drops, our happiness. I saw this, and this is how I discovered these neurochemicals. Is my clinic was in Silicon Valley, and I had so many 43-year-old, 44-year-old women come in and say to me, I don't know, like if you drove to my house, I have a beautiful house. I have two amazing cars. My husband's incredible. My kids are incredible. And I am so unhappy. And I started to understand that there was more than a dip in estrogen and progesterone, that these other neurochemicals were going away. And then on top of that, and this is the premise of the next book, is that when estrogen goes down, our brains actually rewire themselves. So between 40 and 50, those neurons in our brain that kept us in this highly relational place, that kept us wanting to people please, that kept us caring what you thought of us, starts to go away. And those neurons literally prune away. And they're making room for new neurons to form. And the new neurons that are going to form are actually leadership neurons. This is something called the grandmother hypothesis, where our evolutionary design as postmenopausal women is to move from a place where we are nursing and delivering babies to a place where we are foraging for food to be able to keep the species alive. So there was a leadership part of our brain that develops in the loss of estrogen. So estrogen goes away. Neurons start to shed and prune away, and new neurons are coming online. That from 40 to 50, I mean, you're seeing this on social media, so many men. And if you're a man that's doing this on social media, I just really applaud you. That there's so many men that are standing up now and saying, I don't understand my wife. Something's changing in her. I don't understand my girlfriend. Something's changing in her. And so I'm working to understand that. And she's like, I don't understand why I loved making you dinner, and now I don't really want to do that anymore. And in my scenario, we had a household that every kid was welcome. We had tons of kids showing up in our house, and that provided a lot of mess in the house. And when I hit 46, 47, all of a sudden I was like a clean freak. And my husband was like, "What happened to you? You didn't care about this before, and now I really cared about it." And so there are so many preferences that are changing for us during this 10 years. And we don't even understand it. We loved making you dinner at 39. We loved sitting down with you and connecting with you. And at 49, I don't know why. We don't really care about it anymore. Right? And so this is what Age Like a Girl is all about, is to help both men and women. I actually wrote a whole chapter to men in this book, specifically like this is what we're going through. So the more men can sit with us and help us and honor, I get that you're changing. I get that your emotions are up and down. Like you can be an ally for us through that. But please understand that we don't understand ourselves. It's very confusing for us because we used to like pleasing you and we don't anymore.
How much, I think this is, I think most of the people listening to this, all this could shift based on the conversation, but are in their like 30s to 40s and like pre menopause time frame. But I think it's really valuable for me. It's interesting listening to this and thinking of like understanding mothers and grandmothers and just like all of the people, because that's a part of us. Like that's a part of culture, and we live in a culture that's kind of forgotten about older folks. You know, like what I wonder what do you think that what are the consequences of like divorcing or dismissing elderly in our culture?
We have such a messed up way that we deal with elderly. If you look at Japan, they have a huge population of elderly that is very well respected. And in Western culture, we discredit our elderly. And if you go back to the evolutionary makeup of the way the hunter and gatherers did it, this goes back to the grandmother hypothesis that the traditional thing that happened around cave life was men went off to make the big animal kill. Now, again, this is going to sound very sexist, but this is hormones. This is the way the human body was developed. Testosterone builds more muscle, it has more motivation, gives you more drive. So yeah, you should go off and go make the big animal kill. But what happened is men only came back with an animal kill 3% of the time. So it wasn't that easy to kill an animal and drag it back and feed the tribe. So then you had a group of women that were nursing and growing babies. They couldn't go hunt. So when a woman stopped having a menstrual cycle, she was actually put into a new place in the culture of the clan. She was now in a place where she would go forage for food and bring back food to feed the fertile woman and the little kids that couldn't go out and do the big animal kill. Now, in that is so much we can learn about how to take care of our elderly. For example, one of the key neurotransmitters that go down during menopause is a transmitter called acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is a memory. Our brains will make acetylcholine when we are searching our memory bank and going into past stories. And so one of the things that the grandmothers did in the hunter-gatherers days is they sat around and told stories to the younger generation about their life. And they believed that that kept the grandmother very mentally sharp. She didn't, hunter-gatherer, primal postmenopausal women didn't worry about Alzheimer's. And we also believe that it was her sophisticated language of telling stories to these younger children that absolutely helped grow the human brain and develop the languaging of the human brain to what we are communicating with now. So if that is our evolutionary design, then we need to stop tossing aside our elderly, especially our elderly women. We need to start to look, as women go into those postmenopausal years, we need to start to look at how do we give her more purpose, not less purpose. We need to ask, I do this with my 85-year-old mom. I ask her all the time, tell me another story. Like when, you know how moms and grandmas like to tell you the same story over and over again. If you want to improve her memory, ask her a different story. Ask her more detail about that story, because she's going to have to go into her memory bank, make more acetylcholine. And so she's going to be able to, you're going to strengthen her brain. If you want your grandmother or your mother who's gone through menopause to not wither away in those years, give her a purpose. Give her something that she can do that is going to make her feel meaningful so we can bring dopamine back in. Women going through menopause want even deeper connection. So sit and listen and connect in ways that you might have been like, oh, it's just my grandma, it's just my mom. But like, again, back to this feeling state, connect to her in a deeper way. And now you're actually facilitating her brain. And this is really what Age Like a Girl is about, is stop. We got to stop tossing aside our elderly. that history, that wisdom, that life wisdom is so crucial to our society. And for women, we were designed to lead the culture. That's what we were supposed to do in the hunter-gatherer days. The Okinawa women that we put on pedestal, and we're like, look at, they're the longest living women. Well, do you know why? Because they gather together and the village comes to them and asks them, uses them as a resource of wisdom. We don't do that now. And so therefore, we've created a whole commercialization around the anti-aging movement because women are so scared to be tossed aside. We're so scared to look old because we know what this culture does to us if we look old. In Okinawa, they embrace old. They're excited, in Japan in general, because they know they're moving to a place in the culture that's going to be respected. That's what we need to be doing for our mothers and our grandmothers, is putting them up on a pedestal and using them as wise elders, not tossing them aside and criticizing the fact that they got gray hair and wrinkles.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, that would be terrifying. I think I could see myself, like, I feel a lot of like mixed emotions as you're saying all that. It almost like makes me feel like emotional in a way. I'm just like feeling into that sensation. Do you feel, and we can wrap up soon, what do you think the number one fear of a person aging is as they're entering into that like latter portion or last third of their life?
Absolutely, it's that you'll be invisible and nobody will need you anymore. And so if I can dye my hair and I can Botox my forehead, you won't see my age, because I don't want I don't want to go invisible. I want to be used. I want to have purpose. That's a menopausal woman is designed in those years for purpose. And we are so massively scared that we will be left behind.
What do you do with that?
Well, finding new ways to help women find value outside of our looks, because if we go back to the culture, let's think of this through a woman's perspective. You get compliments when you look beautiful. So that is love. I get love from people around me, from strangers, if I look beautiful. Okay, well, what happens if I don't look beautiful anymore? Will you still love me? So make sure we are continuing to talk about other qualities. Like, I love your storytelling. I love your humor. I love your heart. And show other things you may love about us if our faces are wrinkling and gray hairs are popping up everywhere. Like, we need to
Probably
bring
good
these
tips for
other,
a young person. Because that's
yeah.
the thing. It's like a lot of girls, especially if she's like a hot chick, if you tell her she's
Oh,
hot, she's like, great, got it. Kind of hate you. Like, I
yeah.
understand that you're physically attracted to
Yeah,
me, but it's
yeah,
like it's a very unstable, superficial, short-lived compliment. And I think at a subconscious level, someone being able to speak into like, I'm with you regardless of, you know, me thinking you have a whatever. I like your Botox, or I like your, you know,
yeah.
filled lips or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, having raised both a boy and a girl, I read a book called Growing a Girl when my daughter was little. And it talked about this. If you think about the Disney movies, there's all, like, if you're beautiful enough, you're going to get Prince Charming. And so there's so many girls that are like trying to manipulate how they look so that they can get the attention of everybody. And somebody can tell them how beautiful they are. So my daughter had really thick curly hair. She was a cute little kid. And everywhere we went, people would say, "Aren't you beautiful? Isn't your hair amazing?" And I would stand next to her and I would say, "Yeah, she's really smart too." Or, You should see how athletic she is. You should see how funny she is. You should ask her something. She's super funny." So I would constantly be bringing in these other attributes of her, so she didn't get addicted to how she looks for praise. You
Well,
can do the
yeah,
same thing with your girlfriend,
yeah, yeah.
and you'll make her feel
These
safe.
exactly. The aesthetics are a depreciating asset. All
Yeah,
of the deeper stuff are appreciating assets. And so
you got it.
if you want to feel into like safety of the potential of longevity, which is what you're doing in like the dating dance. The feeling of like, oh, this actually could be a safe person to create a family with.
Yeah,
Probably them highlighting those aspects of you that feel timeless would probably be something that would actually evoke more sexiness and more
that's right.
magic and more femininity because you can relax.
Yeah, and if your woman feels safe, her libido goes up, her oxytocin levels go up, her desire to connect to you goes up. So you actually bring up a really important point that I'm happy we didn't lose this, that she already goes out into the world and feels unsafe. But in your relationship, in your arms, if she could feel safe because you accept her for more than how she looks. You accept her for more than her, what she produces at her job. And you bring in other qualities that matter to her. You're going to find her libido go up. You're going to find she's sticking around. We're going to see you're going to find a whole different person there just by making her feel safe. It is so massively important that the female feels safe. And if she doesn't, she's going to go. This is why 70% of divorces after 40 are initiated by women, because there's a moment in those relationships where she stopped feeling safe. And so it's safer to leave than to stay in that relationship.
I know you got to wrap up. I really enjoyed getting to connect with you and talk to you. Uh, what else? What is there anything else that would be supportive to leave people with? Obviously, you have your upcoming book, which around the release of this it should be releasing. But any like final words or things we didn't touch on that would be good to touch on, or anything like that?
Um, at first, I just want to say thank you for this conversation. Because Stephen and I started it a little bit in that first episode, and I went back and chatted with him. I did a second episode with him, and we talked about how he got a lot of positive feedback from it. I got a lot of positive feedback from it. And it was like a beautiful conversation between, at the time I was 52 and he was 31, of like a 52-year-old woman talking to a 31-year-old man, having discussions like this. So I think we need to have more of these. I think when we look at the world right now, and I just, without getting too political, misogyny is back in vogue, and women's suppression is not just happening in our country but in elsewhere, and so more and more women are feeling more and more unsafe. And I think when I look at that, I look at people like Desmond Tutu, who really talked about female leadership and how we could bring peace to the world if we let more women lead. And I think we're dealing with women over a period of, 100 centuries that have been feeling misunderstood. And I think we're at a really interesting point where is if we understand you and we understand how your hormones work and you understand how our hormones work, we can actually come into relationship in a more connected way. But I think a lot of the conversations around relationships, with whether it's romantic or a friend or a business, have been, we choose based off how somebody looks or how somebody performs. But the deeper level underneath that is this neurochemical system and the differences. And if we can bring more conversations, like I would tell everybody, share this episode out and then start these conversations with other men. I would love to see a man and woman listen to this episode together and then open that conversation up and start to, just in a very safe way, start to have the conversations that are not being had. And we are seeing, like Terry Real. I'm bringing him on my podcast next month. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a therapist that is really helping bring men into understanding women. We've got Esther Perel, who's a famous therapist right now, who's really trying to help, both men and women understand each other better. But we have hit that moment that we need to realize we have differences. It's okay. We do have differences. And so we need to be able to filter our language according to the brains we're talking to.
I love that. Thank you so much. I
My
appreciate you.
pleasure. Thank you.
So your book, Age Like a Girl, is coming out in December. This will release right around that time frame.
Yeah,
Right?
December 16th. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in.
Appreciate you.
That is it. That is all. I'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, you might also enjoy this episode over here, as well as this one over here. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.